The radical left's agendas are attacking your values, but conservatives like you haven't forgotten what this country was built on. My friends, the Heritage Foundation exists to make sure your voice is heard and to represent your values in the D.C. swamp. The Heritage Foundation stands for your values, and they won't give up the struggle because they know you never will. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Welcome. It is the Mark Levin Show. Ben Ferguson filling in tonight for the great one who is in Israel. He will be back with you shortly. I can promise you that. We have so much to cover on the show tonight, including the latest coming from the courtroom as the Utah judge has informed Tyler Robison that he could, in fact, face the death penalty if convicted of aggravated murder. Here is what was said moments ago in that courtroom.
Aggravated murder, a capital felony in violation of Utah Code annotated 76-5-202, in that on September 10th, 2025 in Utah County, the defendant, Tyler James Robison, intentionally or knowingly caused the death of Charlie Kirk under the following circumstances. The defendant knowingly created a great risk of death to another individual other than Charlie Kirk and the defendant. Notice conviction of this offense may carry the death penalty or pursuant to Utah Code 76-3-207.7, a mandatory term of imprisonment for life without parole or an indeterminate term of not less than 25 years, that may be for life.
Tyler Robison could face the death penalty if convicted of aggravated murder. You could hear the judge there making it very clear that this is how serious the state is going to go after him. It is very obvious that there is a major push for the death penalty. I also want to be clear, I am in favor of the death penalty. In fact, I do not believe that we use the death penalty often enough. And I believe many times it takes so long, even when the death penalty is used, that it is not a deterrent the way that it should be in this country. But if you want to stop the political violence that we are witnessing in this country, and I believe that unfortunately this political violence is the new trend. I believe it's a new trend like school shootings. I said this earlier this week on TV. These psychopaths used to do the school shootings because that's what, quote, made them famous. And then we stopped using their names and making them famous after the school shootings happened. It used to be you could remember the shooters' names. And now I believe that these radical extremists on the left who have been radicalized by, I want to be clear, the Democratic Party, and I'm going to lay my evidence for that argument in just a moment. But they now have decided, if we can't debate you, we'll just kill you. If we can't beat you on election day, we'll just silence you with a bullet. The same party, by the way, that claims they're in favor of gun control is the party now, and their followers that are using weapons, as they would say, weapons of war, to take out their political opponents, including going after our president, Donald Trump. There's also been a grand debate, which is disgusting to me, on TV. A debate about, well, we're not really sure what motivated this individual. Are you insane? We know exactly who motivated this individual. It was a radical left. And yes, those leaders are Democrats. We have a montage, not one, but two montages of elected Democrats calling Republicans fascists and threats to America. And it's time we start calling those Democrats out by name. Representative Donna Titus, Nevada 1st District. Representative Susie Lee, Nevada 3rd District. Representative Marie Glusenkamp Perez, Washington 3rd District. Representative Derek Tran, California 45th. Representative Dave Min, California 47th. Representative Gabe Vasquez, New Mexico 2nd. Representative Adam Gray, California 13th District. Representative Josh Harder, California 9th. Representative Eugene Vindman, Virginia 8th. Representative Josh Riley, New York 19th. And Representative Laura Gillen, New York 4th. All of those Democrats have referred to conservatives and leaders and our side of the aisle as fascists. That is what they believe. The media, by the way, and the media commentators have gotten in on it as well. They have no problem talking about fascists and every other name under the sun, including calling us Hitler and saying that and again, let's go to Hitler. If you ask people a question, if you could kill Adolf Hitler earlier in life, would you do it? The answer is, for a lot of people, yes. And that's why they call you Hitler. That's why they call you a Nazi, because they're hoping that some crazy like this individual will follow through on their mission. They're lighting the match. They're pouring the gasoline, and they're wanting someone else to explode it. I want you to listen to this montage of the Democratic Party going all in on the word fascists.
That while Donald Trump was president, he said he wanted generals like Adolf Hitler had.
Just to be clear, when you said we do agree, President Biden believes that Donald Trump is a fascist.
I mean, yes, we've said, he said himself, the former president has said he is going to be a dictator on day one. We cannot ignore that. We cannot.
Do you think Donald Trump is a fascist?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
President Franklin Roosevelt was appalled that neo-Nazis, fascists in America were lining up to essentially pledge their support for the kind of government that they were seeing in Germany.
Listen, I am concerned that this race is tight in general for whatever reason, even if Americans didn't understand that he is a threat to our democracy and that he is a fascist.
His default, of course, is a fascist-like tendency during the time that he can, have a cognitive ability. And that's not an accusation that I'm making. That's an accusation that comes from people who have worked for him at the most senior levels.
You've never had in the history of the country a president want to be like Adolf Hitler. I mean, that's just such an extraordinary statement that have come from now a number of people that it should cause everybody in America to stop and think about how devastatingly impossible that is to contemplate.
It's a joyful campaign, but it is reflecting off who they are running against. A dark, dismal, fascist, and increasingly obviously fascist person.
We are on the eve of an authoritarian administration. This is what 21st century fascism is starting to look like.
So as important as it is that we are doing the work of resistance against Donald Trump and this hostile administration and this hostile government takeover and this march towards extremism.
Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans represent an extremism that threatens the very foundations of our republic.
Are they a threat to democracy? Yes. Are they going to take our rights away? Yes. Are they going to put people's lives in danger? Yes. Are they going to endanger the planet by not dealing with climate change? Yes. They're going to do all that.
Needs to be unrest in the streets for as long as there's unrest in our lives. And unfortunately, there's plenty to go around.
I just don't even know why there aren't uprisings all over the country. Maybe there will be.
It's a danger. He's a genuine danger to American security.
What is what kicking the out of fascism looks like?
Comparing the tactics of Donald Trump to Mussolini and Hitler is a very legitimate thing.
We have a Timo Hitler in the White House right now.
I have thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House.
They're still going to have to go out and put a bullet in Donald Trump, and that's a fact.
The thing we were all warning about for the last few years is not coming, it is here. We do now live in a country that has an authoritarian leader in charge. We have a consolidating dictatorship in our country.
And what we're seeing play out here is Donald Trump's promise to be a dictator on day one.
Trump has seemingly never met a dictator he doesn't like.
It's some real dictator type stuff.
The American people will have to decide that they are the last in the line of defense against Donald Trump and American fascists.
What is happening right now with this presidential attack on judges?
We live in a fascist dictatorship. This is where we are.
You have to call a thing what it is and be definitional about it. The word MAGA doesn't mean anything other than if you go back, it's what fascists used to say.
I've been tweeting for over a year. Daily reminder, today's GOP is no longer a political movement.
It is a fascist movement that has embraced white nationalism.
Here's the guy who said, stand back and stand by to the Proud Boys. Look at what he's doing last night, as you know, that, more or less salutes that are either QAnon or almost look like Nazism.
I am going to put that in our podcast so that you can share it. And next time you see Democrats claim that they have not called us fascists, that they have not created an environment where these young radicals on the left are trying to kill our leaders, where they're coming after people that just are advocating for a grand debate like Charlie Kirk or the assassination attempt on the president, Donald Trump. I want you to remind them in the 4 minutes that I just played that this is the biggest leaders and the president at the time, Joe Biden, his vice president, his White House press secretary. You could hear the famous voices. The highest levels of the Democratic Party have been saying this. If you don't think it was on purpose and that this was a clearly orchestrated decision by the Communist, Socialist, Marxist, Democratic Party to inspire shooters, assassins to do their dirty work for them, you're not paying attention. And where do they get their microphone from to say the things that I just played for you? I didn't go to their websites to find it at the whitehouse.gov. I didn't go to Kamala Harris's Twitter page. No, this was from the media. You have to understand how orchestrated this narrative was. You had the highest leaders in the Democratic Party who decided to get everyone in their party that had power to say this over and over and over and over again, to normalize this type of speech, this type of political hate. And then they went to the media and they said, we need you to be our messenger. We need you to be the one sounding the alarm. We need you to normalize what we're trying to say so it doesn't seem crazy that we say it over and over again. And that is exactly what they did. And so now here we are. We have my friend Charlie Kirk that's been assassinated, and we've had a president that literally has been shot in an attempted assassination. And if you don't think they have a list of others that they wish or hope or want to be shot, you're not paying attention. They want all of us dead that have a microphone, that are powerful. They want all of us that speak truth to be dead. How do I know it? Because of the last 4 minutes that I just played for you. I will put this in my podcast. It will be in the Levin podcast tomorrow as you can download it and share it. Ben Ferguson podcast. I'll put it in the 47 morning update, the one I do that is about the White House every day, because this is where we have to expose them for who they are. And notice, I didn't start with all the Congress people. I'm going to play them for you in a minute. I started with the president, the vice president, the leadership of the Democratic Party. They did this, America, and we need to hold them accountable. And we need to hold the media accountable for allowing it to happen, to normalize it to the point where then there are people that are taking up arms. They're saying, who is next? Ben Ferguson, filling in for the great one. I'll take your phone calls, 1-877-381-3811. I hope that you'll follow me on social during the break as well. And I'll read your comments on X, at Ben Ferguson Show, on Instagram, at Ben Ferguson Podcast, on Facebook, Ben Ferguson put in there. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Decades of conflict in the Middle East made many despair of ever finding a lasting peace. But in 2020, Israel and 4 Arab nations, once estranged, joined together for peace by signing the Abraham Accords. Thanks to President Trump's leadership, these historic agreements opened up previously unimaginable channels for cooperation, new pathways for peace, trade, investment, and collaboration. After 5 years, the Abraham Accords still stand as a beacon of hope for a future of shared growth and interfaith tolerance. Why should Americans like you care? Peace in the Middle East is vital to America's national security, and that's why the Heritage Foundation dedicated its resources to supporting the implementation and expansion of the Abraham Accords and Peace Through Strength. And that's why the Heritage Foundation's experts released the Abraham Accords report, tracking the evolution and expansion of the Abraham Accords. This exclusive resource, only available from the Heritage Foundation, presents the latest news and statistics on how the Accords are boosting trade and innovation and advancing the U.S. critical interests in the Middle East. Get the latest updates today by going to heritage.org/LEVIN. That's heritage.org/Levin. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
All right, welcome back. It is the Mark Levin Show. Ben Ferguson filling in for the great one who is in Israel. He'll be back with you very soon. And we've got a lot to chat about on the program tonight, including how did we get to the point where there are people that are truly inspired, especially young people, to kill people they disagree with politically? What got us to this point? It was the leadership of the Democratic Party. And the Democratic Party decided a long time ago that what they were going to do is they were going to indoctrinate young people to believe that anyone they disagree with is truly an enemy, and anyone that they disagree with, you are justified in taking out. That is what this is. And anyone that disagrees with me, go back and listen to the montage that I just played for you. I also know it's working because of what we're witnessing now. And what we are witnessing now is Democrats who are, I call them like low-level Democrats, who are echoing what the party has said. There's a 7.5-minute montage that I just retweeted, by the way, of elected Democrats calling Republicans fascists and threats to America. Now, these people are doing it because of the montage that I just played you of the leadership of the Democratic Party, including the former president, vice president, and many other top-level leaders, like the highest of the highest in the Democratic Party, saying that, well, we're a bunch of fascists, that Trump's a fascist, that we got to stop the fascists. Go back to the inscriptions on the bullets. It wasn't an accident, folks. The words that were chosen to be inscripted on those bullet casings. And if you don't think the minions of the Democratic Party are buying this stuff, well, listen to Representative, a Democrat, Dina Titus, Nevada 1st District, in her Nevada victory early vote speech to the voters in Nevada. Here's what she said.
We got to stand up and fight back against those MAGA Republicans. I said MAGA now, not maggot. We got to fight against the homophobes in their party. We got to fight back against the election deniers. And we got to fight back against all those MAGA supporters.
We got to fight back. You demonize us. And it makes it easier for a young person to pick up a gun and try to kill us. We'll be right back.
After Hamas's October 7, 2023 terror attack on Israel, the Abraham Accords seemed doomed to fall apart. But now, 2 years after the terrorist attack and 5 years after the historic peace agreements were signed, the Abraham Accords remain resilient. However, without the support of the American people, the Accords have an uncertain future. So to keep the Abraham Accords alive for the next 5 years, it's critical that patriots like you support them. And that starts with understanding exactly how they came about and why they're so important. At heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/LEVIN, you'll find an exclusive resource only available from the Heritage Foundation. The Abraham Accords report gives you the latest news and statistics on how the Accords are boosting trade and innovation and advancing the United States' vital interests in the Middle East. The Accords will only continue to bring peace to the Middle East with your support, so go to heritage.org/Levin to claim your free resource today. That's heritage.org/LEVIN, paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
This is where liberalism ends and liberty begins. The Mark Levin Show at 877-381-3811.
Welcome back. It is the Mark Levin Show. Ben Ferguson filling in for the great one, Mark. Tonight he is in Israel. He'll be back with you shortly. We've got a lot to talk about. And I go back to what I said earlier about the Democratic Party. If you want to know what created the environment where we have now normalized assassination of political leaders, whether you're an elected official or a grand debater like Charlie Kirk. If you want to know what got us to where we are now, it took time, folks. It took real effort. It took a coordinated effort by the biggest leaders in the Democratic Party to get a generation to believe that it is completely appropriate to kill people that they disagree with politically. I want to give you a stat just to put this into perspective, and I want you to listen to how quickly we have been desensitized to political violence. And you say, well, hold on, have we really been desensitized to it? Generationally, we have. Generation by generation by generation. We are now witnessing a hardcore desensitizing to the idea that you can just kill anybody that you think is a threat to what you believe in. It's not what, by the way, makes this country amazing. And Democrats are like, no, it's okay. Like, you can go out there and if whether it's Trump or Charlie Kirk or anybody else that you don't like, that's a conservative saying something you don't like, you can do it. And I'm going to give you two more pieces of data. Like, if there's any night that I've ever hosted for the great one, tonight's a night where you may actually want to start taking notes. One of the first things that Democrats did is they decided to desensitize people to violence before they got to killing. How do I know this? Because of their track record. Let's go back to the desensitizing of the left to the idea of even using violence. And when you get violent, you got to get people to the point where you can justify the violence. So step one, you start things like Black Lives Matter. And then you add the word riots to it. And then and what did the media do? They're like, oh, no. Like, I know they're burning stuff down. Like, I know they're burning down cities and convenience stores. And I know that they're burning those police cars behind us in that police station. But it's mostly peaceful, AKA, well, this is justified. And so you had the Black Lives Matter riots. Then they said, all right, let's burn down some more stuff. And it moved into Antifa. Then it moved into church shootings. Then it moved into the Trump assassination attempt #1. Then it moved to the Charlie Kirk assassination. And before that, by the way, we had just a couple months ago. Remember the Tesla vandalisms? Like, we normalized, like, literally bombing Tesla dealerships, putting bombs into cars and blowing things up. Then we had the normalizing of the pro-life pregnancy center fires where you could just burn down a pro-life center. Then we normalized, not we, let's be clear, the left, normalized the attacks on ICE agents. And it was justifiable to want to attack or shoot ICE agents. Remember, that happened. There were ICE agents that were shot and shot at, going in and out of their place of work. Remember that? Then we were doxing them and we were threatening to kill their kids and their wives and targeting their homes. We normalize that, right? Because if you disagree with them, well, you just go out there and you kill them. We've normalized attacks on police officers. Well, police are bad. We got to defund the police. We got to get rid of the police. We got to have bail reform, prison reform. We got to advocate for criminal activity. Hell, then we even saw the attacks on federal courthouses. And this is not the full list. Matt Walsh, by the way, put out a great list. I'm pulling from part of that now. He said, quote, this is merely a partial list. Nearly all of the politically motivated violence in America is committed by one side. This is not a both sides thing. This is a one-sided thing. He is correct. You go back to what Elon Musk put out. Quote, they don't kill you because you're a Nazi. They call you a Nazi so that they can what? So that they can kill you. Why did they kill Charlie Kirk? Because he was a man that they dehumanized, and the right they are dehumanizing, and the police they are dehumanizing, and the pregnancy crisis centers they're dehumanizing, and the churches and Christians they have dehumanized. What was Charlie Kirk's crime? Asking people that disagree with him to come have a conversation with him. If I would have done this show last week, I would have been very sad and I would have been choked up a lot. I am now at the point where I am doubling down and I am hell-bent on fighting the radical left that is absolutely trying to destroy this country and silence anyone that they believe gets in their way. By the way, I know what it's like to have your life targeted. I was a target of a gang initiation. They tried to take my life. I've been shot at from point blank range. I had to shoot back, oddly enough, in the place of the president sending the National Guard to Memphis, Tennessee, because I stood up to the gangs that were destroying Memphis, Tennessee. And I started to expose the gangs in Memphis, Tennessee, and the leadership of the gangs in Memphis, Tennessee, and what they were doing to my hometown. And it almost cost me my life. I've had a gun put to the side of my head. I've had a gun pointed at me, and I've been run off the road. For one, and what was my crime? Speaking out on the radio. By the way, on the same radio station, the people in Memphis are hearing me right now. You know what the police told me when I called them? They told me, we don't do high-speed chases. We need you to pull over and wait for us. I said, there's a guy chasing me with a gun out the window. What you need to understand about the left is they are dehumanizing us, so then they can inspire this younger generation to kill us. What did Charlie do that made them angry? He believed in traditional marriage. He said, get married. He believed in a traditional family. He said, have children. He said, build a legacy. That's what they're most threatened by. He wanted to pass down his values to his family and to his friends. Well, they don't like that. Got to kill him. He wanted them to pursue eternal life with Jesus as your Lord and Savior. We said, seek true joy. And he said, eventually we'll replace the nihilists. And that's when they're like, nope, can't have that. Got to kill him. By the way, we had some really cool things happen this last week. We had a lot of people that came together. There has been, in some ways, a turn here. Look at Sunday. A couple of years ago, it was like Black Lives Matter everything and 2 national anthems. But this last Sunday, what happened? There was a lot of teams that honored Charlie Kirk, NFL football teams. By the way, they figured out a lot of the people buying their tickets are actually conservatives. But here's what you also need to know. A lot of it was done probably in somewhat protest. According to the New York Post, listen carefully, the Bengals, the Lions, the Colts, and the Ravens, Cincinnati Bengals, Detroit Lions, Indianapolis Colts, and the Baltimore Ravens, I say those cities, go look at who's running them, are cited as the teams that did not hold moments of silence for Charlie Kirk. Well, the other teams did. NBC Sports and Pro Football Talk confirmed that in the 9 early Sunday games, those 4 teams did not tribute. Those games were Cincinnati versus Jaguars. Yeah, the Bengals said no. The Bears versus the Lions said no, we're not gonna celebrate this guy. The Browns versus the Ravens. Ravens said the same thing. And why? Well, here's what the NFL had stated. The NFL had stated that after a league mandated tribute before one game, each team will have was left free to choose whether to hold a tribute or a moment of silence in their subsequent games. So in other words, we're going to check the box. Now, thank goodness there's some team owners out there that actually aren't insane. But I would say to those teams that didn't do it, F those teams. Which brings me to the next point that I said a moment ago, and I want to get to this because it's really important. I said earlier that the Democratic Party, and I go back to the montage that I played for you earlier, of the biggest leaders in the Democratic Party calling for political violence. Now, you say, well, hold on, Ben. They didn't actually say go kill somebody. No, they just said, well, you're a fascist, you're Hitler, you're a Nazi. You want to know how the impact that's had on young people? All right, let's go through the new polling data. Political violence, quote, is never acceptable. Baby boomers were still sane. 93% of baby boomers say political violence is never acceptable. But here's where the deterioration of the family, the home, and values has happened, and how the media and the left are grabbing the minds of young people who are now the killers. Gen X, 86%. So the number drops from 93 to 86%. Political violence is never acceptable. Gen X, 86%. Political violence is never acceptable among millennials. It drops then again in the next generation to 71%. So again, baby boomers, 93% of baby boomers said political violence is never acceptable. That number drops in just 2 generations down to the millennials to 71%. But here's the thing that's scary as hell. And they know this is happening, folks, and it's by design. The Democratic Party has now gotten Gen Z to a point where political violence is never acceptable. They say only 58% of Gen Zers say that. What does that mean? That means the 42% of Gen Zers believe, more than 4 out of every 10 Gen Zers believe that political violence is acceptable, appropriate, warranted, needed, acceptable behavior to go out there and to get violence against the people that you disagree with. So I go back to the montage that I played for you earlier. And with all the information that I just gave you, I want you to listen to it again. And I want you to listen to it carefully again. And I want you to listen to the voices carefully. And I want you to think about what I just said in the presentation that I just gave you about the reality of where we are as a country. And I want you to understand what happened the other day to Charlie Kirk was a seed that has taken years to plant it, to water it, and to grow it. And they've done it with a generation that now 4 in 10 believes that the behavior is acceptable and needed.
That while Donald Trump was president, he said he wanted generals like Adolf Hitler had.
Just to be clear, when you said we do agree, President Biden believes that Donald Trump is a fascist.
I mean, yes.
That is the woman that they chose to be the presidential candidate for the Democratic Party, Kamala Harris.
We have said, he said himself, the former president has said he is going to be a dictator on day one. We cannot ignore that. We cannot.
That is the press secretary that speaks on behalf of the President of the United States of America at the White House podium.
Do you think Donald Trump is a fascist?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
President Franklin Roosevelt.
Did you hear that? That was Kamala Harris again. Do you believe that President Trump is a fascist? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Well, what about the leader that was the last nominee before that? Her name is what? Hillary Clinton. Well, hold on a second. What does Hillary Clinton say about this? Listen carefully.
I do.
President Franklin Roosevelt was appalled that neo-Nazis, fascists in America were lining up to essentially pledge their support for the kind of government that they were seeing in Germany.
Listen, I am concerned that this race is tight in general for whatever reason, even if Americans didn't understand that he is a threat to our democracy and that he is a fascist.
His default, of course, is a fascist-like tendency during the time that he can, have a cognitive ability. And that's not an accusation that I'm making. That's an accusation that comes from people who have worked for him at the most senior levels.
You've never had in the history of the country a president want to be like Adolf Hitler. I mean, that's just such an extraordinary statement that have come from now a number of people that it should cause everybody in America to stop and think about how devastatingly impossible that is to contemplate.
It's a joyful campaign, but it is reflecting off who they are running against. A dark, dismal, fascist, and increasingly obviously fascist person.
We are on the eve of an authoritarian administration. This is what 21st century fascism is starting to look like.
So as important as it is that we are doing the work of resistance against Donald Trump and this hostile administration and this hostile government takeover and this march towards extremism.
Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans represent an extremism that threatens the very foundations of our republic.
Are they a threat to democracy? Yes. Are they going to take our rights away? Yes. Are they going to put people's lives in danger? Yes. Are they going to endanger the planet by not dealing with climate change? Yes. They're going to do all that.
Needs to be unrest in the streets for as long as there's unrest in our lives. And unfortunately, there's plenty to go around.
I just don't even know why there aren't uprisings all over the country. Maybe there will be.
It's a danger. He's a genuine danger to American security.
What
is what kicking the out of fascism looks like?
Comparing the tactics of Donald Trump to Mussolini and Hitler is a very legitimate thing.
We have a Timo Hitler in the White House right now.
I have thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House.
They're still going to have to go out and put a bullet in Donald Trump, and that's a fact.
The thing we were all warning about for the last few years is not coming, it is here. We do now live in a country that has an authoritarian leader in charge. We have a consolidating dictatorship in our country.
And what we're seeing play out here is Donald Trump's promise to be a dictator on day one.
Trump has seemingly never met a dictator he doesn't like.
It's some real dictator type stuff.
The American people will have to decide that they are the last in the line of defense against Donald Trump and American fascists.
Mark Levin.
Decades of conflict in the Middle East made many despair of ever finding a lasting peace. But in 2020, Israel and 4 Arab nations, once estranged, joined together for peace by signing the Abraham Accords. Thanks to President Trump's leadership, these historic agreements opened up previously unimaginable channels for cooperation, new pathways for peace, trade, investment, and collaboration. After 5 years, the Abraham Accords still stand as a beacon of hope for a future of shared growth and interfaith tolerance. Why should Americans like you care? Peace in the Middle East is vital to America's national security, and that's why the Heritage Foundation dedicated its resources to supporting the implementation and expansion of the Abraham Accords and Peace Through Strength. And that's why the Heritage Foundation's experts released the Abraham Accords report, tracking the evolution and expansion of the Abraham Accords. This exclusive resource, only available from the Heritage Foundation, presents the latest news and statistics on how the Accords are boosting trade and innovation and advancing the U.S. critical interests in the Middle East. Get the latest updates today by going to heritage.org/LEVIN. That's heritage.org/Levin. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
All right, welcome back. It is the Mark Levin Show. Ben Ferguson filling in for the great one, 877-381-3811. By the way, the montage I played for you, I've just put it up on X. You can follow me there, at Ben Ferguson Show. Share it everywhere, okay? At Ben Ferguson Show. Also, if you're on Instagram, it's up there as well. It's a little different, Ben Ferguson Podcast. By the way, we're also going to deal with what the media is doing. And if you've never heard of a guy by the name of Matt Gutman, Matt Gutman, in a normal world, would have been fired by now for his absolutely, I think, delusional and disgusting commentary at ABC about the alleged murder and the text messages that have come out. I'm going to play that 52 seconds, I should say, of that video coming up. And ABC News is still giving a paycheck to Matt Gutman. Why? Because he's one of those that is pushing this political narrative that all of us are expendable if you don't agree with us. More coming up.
This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by Pure Talk. Pure Talk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship, Pure Talk.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hour 2, Mark Levin Show. Ben Ferguson filling in for the great one. It's nice to have you with us. He's in Israel right now. He's going to be back with us shortly. I can promise you that, with a lot to say about that trip. But in the meantime, I'm going to be holding down the fort for you today. There is a story that is one that shows you just how much the media really can't stand that they're actually having to do their job and fake it as if they're real journalists reporting on the real story and the real motive behind the killing of Charlie Kirk. And there are many in the media, they're like, you know what? I'm not gonna tell you the real story. Instead, ABC News reporter decided it would be a good idea to gush over a gay trans romance between Charlie Kirk's killer and his dude chick trans boyfriend. This actually aired on ABC, what I'm about to play for you. And this is ABC's Matt Gutman. And here is what he had to say to America. Now, in any real normal world, Matt Gutman would have been fired by now. But what you have to understand is you don't hate the media enough. Because this is what they're going to go back to. They're going to go back to calling conservatives fascists. Give them time, folks. It'll be back to the mainstream, just like the montage I played for you. And please listen to me when I say this. I posted it up on X, at Ben Ferguson Show on X. It's Ben Ferguson Podcast on Instagram. On Facebook, it's up there. Just put in Ben Ferguson. I'll put it in my podcast tomorrow. To be in Mark Levin's podcast tomorrow as well. You can download Ben Ferguson Podcast for free wherever you get your podcasts. The montage's in there. But I put it out there so you understand how fast they're going to go back to this. They are going to go back to anything that Donald Trump and anyone around Donald Trump is evil. They're somehow, they're Hitler. They're Nazis. They're fascists, right? Like you say it over and over again. And what do? You make the youngest generation believe that political violence is okay and justifiable to stop people. And then you get guys like ABC's Matt Gutman. I don't know him personally, but if this isn't reporting, y'all, this is propaganda. This is political cover to justify the shooter's actions. I'm going to play it for you unedited.
We have seen an alleged murder with such specific text messages about the alleged murder weapon, where it was hidden, how it was placed, what was on it, but also it was very touching in a way that I think many of us didn't expect. A very intimate portrait into this relationship between the suspect's roommate and the suspect himself, with him repeatedly calling his roommate, who is transitioning, calling him my love, and I want to protect you, my love. So it was this duality of someone who the attorney said not only jeopardized the life of Charlie Kirk and the crowd, but was doing it in front of children, which is one of the aggravating circumstances of this case. And on the other hand, he was, speaking so lovingly about his partner. So a very interesting and, as Pierre said, riveting press conference, David.
It was tough.
I mean, what in the actual hell? I'm going to go back to some of the words he used there. And this is on ABC News tonight. Special report. Alleged Charlie Kirk shooter faces 7 counts, including aggravated murder, state seeking death penalty. That's what it says on the screen of ABC News. Special report. And Matt Gutman is like, if we have seen an alleged murder with such specific text messages that were very touching in a way that I think many of us didn't expect, a very intimate portrait into this relationship between the suspect's roommate, who is transitioning, calling him my love, and I want to protect you, my love. So it was this Guilty of someone who the attorney said not only jeopardized the life of Charlie Kirk and the crowd, but was doing it in front of children, which is one of the aggravating circumstances of this case. And then on the other hand, he was, speaking so lovingly to his partner. So a very interesting, riveting press conference. That is the media's coverage of a cold-blooded assassin. Like that is it. And by the way, if this was a mistake, all right, maybe it was just bad wording. Gotcha. Let's just go 10 minutes later. After this on ABC News Live, here is ABC's Matt Gutman in another conversation. Are you ready? Here we go.
It is. It's heartbreaking on so many levels, Kira. Obviously, Charlie Kirk was murdered brutally in front of a crowd of thousands of people who watched him being shot through the neck and then essentially bleed out in front of him. And I think one of the things that the attorney here made a very fine point about is that a lot of these charges, 7 charges, were aggravated because children were present. Children witnessed this. Children were put in harm's way. And that was something that obviously is aggravating here. And that's one of the reasons that the suspect, in addition to the alleged murder being political in nature, is facing the death penalty. They're going for the death penalty. And on the other hand, there is this duality of a portrait of a very human person, a very human experience from this entire family. As you mentioned it, the mother who essentially discovered that it was her son who had done this, the kid who had got a 34 out of 36 on the ACTs, who had a 4.0, who got a full ride to college here, that kid was the one who allegedly perpetrated. She saw those pictures and said, identified him essentially. And then those text messages, and I don't think I've ever experienced a press conference in which we've read text messages that are so fulsome, so robust, so apparently, allegedly self-incriminating, and yet on the other hand, so touching. Right, with the suspect reaching out to his roommate, who is allegedly his boyfriend, who we understand, identified as male at birth, now identifies as female, and the terminology he used. He was trying to protect him. He kept calling him my love. My reason for doing this is to protect you, but also asking him to delete the messages and not speak to law enforcement. So there's this heartbreaking duality that we're seeing very tragically playing out.
That was 10 minutes later. I mean this when I say this. You don't hate the media enough. Every day, the corporate media finds new and creative ways to humiliate themselves. That's what one of my friends, Tom Elliott, said on X. I agree with him. What's even more messed up is Matt Gutman of ABC News seems to think this twisted love story of the assassin is somehow touching. It's like he's giving you this fantasy world that he thinks is so great. And it's just such a beautiful moment between these two lovers. This is the media now in America today. And if you want to know how these assassins are made and created, well, I mean, imagine if you're on edge right now and you're thinking about being the next one, and this is what you're watching on ABC News. When I read these text messages, I didn't see a love story. I was reading a deranged individual. By the way, I call me cynical, but like part of these text messages seemed so perfect to me. It was almost like he was giving his roommate an alibi so that his roommate wouldn't get in trouble with law enforcement. Robison, I am still okay, my love, but am stuck in Orem for a little while longer yet. Shouldn't be long until I can come home, but I got to grab my rifle still. To be honest, I had hoped to keep this secret till I died of old age. I'm sorry to involve you. Roommate, you weren't the one who did it, right? Question mark. Robinson, I'm sorry. By the way, this is my own theory. I want to be clear on this, but this seems too perfectly worded. Like they talked or something like, hey, I want to make sure roommate, right? My trans lover, that you're not in trouble for knowing about this. So I'm going to put text messages together that they'll see that will somehow keep you out of it. Roommate, I thought they caught the person. Robinson, no, they grabbed some crazy old dude. then interrogated someone in similar clothing. I had planned to grab my rifle from my drop point shortly after, but most of the side of town got locked down. It's quiet, almost enough to get out. But there's one vehicle lingering. Roommate, why? Why did I do it? ? Roommate, yeah. I had enough of his hatred. Some hate can't be negotiated out. If I am able to grab my rifle unseen, I will have left no evidence. Going to attempt to retrieve it again. Hopefully they have moved on. I haven't seen anything about them finding it. Roommate, how long have you been planning this? Like, these questions are just too perfect, y'all. Robinson, a bit over a week, I believe. I can't get close to it, but there is a squad car parked right by it. I think they already swept that spot, but I don't want to chance it. Robinson, I'm wishing I had circled back and grabbed it as soon as I got to my vehicle. I'm worried that my old man would do if I didn't bring it back. Grandpa's rifle, I don't know. If it had a serial number, but it wouldn't trace to me. I'm worried about prints. I had to leave it in a bush where I changed outfits. Didn't have the ability or time to bring it with. I might have to abandon it and hope they don't find prints. How the blank will I explain losing it to my old man? Only thing I left was a rifle wrapped in a towel. Remember how I was engraving bullets? ? The effing messages are mostly a big meme. If I see notice bulge UWU on Fox News, I might have a stroke. All right, I'm going to have to leave it. That really blinking sucks. And I just assassinated somebody, but he's really upset about leaving the gun behind. I want to be clear. I'm not law enforcement, but I read those messages. I don't read a love story like ABC News reads it. I'm reading a psychopath that's covering for his trans lover. That's what I read. Trying to change the narrative mainly. Like, hey, I don't want them knowing that you knew about this beforehand. I'm going to text you X, and then you're going to act like you didn't know anything. I'm sorry. In my opinion, it's too perfect. The roommate. Police interviewed Robinson's roommate, a biological male who was involved in a romantic relationship with Robinson. The roommate told police that the roommate received message from Robinson about the shooting. Provide those messages to police. Like, here it is. Here's our alibi. On September the 10th, the roommate received a text message from Robinson which said, drop what you're doing. Look under my keyboard. The roommate looked under the keyboard and found a note that said, I had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and I'm going to take it. Police found a photograph of this note. The following text exchange, then they say, took place. I'll go back to what I said. I think it's too perfect. Quote, here's more of the text message. Judging from today, I'd say Grandpa's gun does just fine. I don't know. I think that was a $2,000 scope. Robinson, delete this exchange. Robinson, my dad wants photos of the rifle. He says Grandpa wants to know who has that what. The feds released a photo of the rifle and it is very unique. He's calling me right now, not answering. Robinson, since Trump got in office, my dad has been pretty diehard MAGA. Robinson, I'm going to turn myself in willingly. One of my neighbors here is a deputy for the sheriff. Robinson, you are all I worry about, love. Roommate, I'm much more worried about you. Robinson, don't talk to the media, please. Don't take any interviews or make any comments. If any police ask you questions, ask for a lawyer and stay silent. And that is what ABC News is describing as a beautiful love story, folks. And you wonder how we have radicalized an entire generation. Ben Ferguson filling in for the great one. 1-877-381-3811. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
When was the last time you bragged about your wireless company? Like, did you know my wireless company gave away 1,000 American flags to deserving vets and forgave $10 million in veteran debt? Did you know my wireless company raised almost $500,000 to help prevent veteran suicide? In other words, when your wireless company is Pure Talk, there's a whole lot to brag about. You can even brag about the coverage you get with Pure Talk, a 5G network that is insanely fast, dependable, and secure. And you can definitely brag about how much money you save with Pure Talk. Unlimited talk, text, plenty of data. Just $25 a month, saving the average family over $1,000 a year. It's time to switch to my favorite wireless company, Pure Talk. Go to puretalk.com/Levin and save an additional 50% off your first month. Again, puretalk.com/LEVIN. Make the switch today. Pure Talk, wireless worth bragging about.
Welcome back. It is the Mark Levin Show. Ben Ferguson filling in for the great one. All the audio clips I'm playing for you, by the way, I'm posting up on social media because you guys are warriors, and I want to make sure that you guys can get them out to the rest of the world, because we do these shows so that you guys can take the message and spread it to the masses. All these montages I'm putting up. If you're on X, you can follow me at Ben Ferguson Show. If you're on Instagram, at Ben Ferguson Podcast. And all of them will be in my podcast tomorrow. You can download Mark Levin's podcast. It'll be in there. And I would love for you guys to listen to my podcast in the mornings. It is the Ben Ferguson Podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. I want to also play for you something else. The idea that this happened in a vacuum and no one else knew about this assassination of Charlie Kirk, I just want to say I'm not buying it. By the way, neither is the FBI director, Kash Patel. I want you to listen to what Kash had to say to Senator Josh Hawley, Republican from Missouri, about Discord chats where a lot of these conversations are taking place. Listen.
It's done in this investigation. It's the FBI investigating the Kirk assassination as part of this broader pattern of anti-religious, anti-Christian violence.
We are investigating Charlie's assassination fully and completely, and running out every lead related to any allegation of broader violence. And we're producing results on that we'll disclose when appropriate.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. Let me just ask you a few questions about that, if I could. Sure. Reports have suggested that the FBI is investigating a broader network of groups that may have had some knowledge of the shooter's plans. Can you give us any details on that, following up what you've already said in public? How's the FBI working to find other potential accomplices, folks who may have known about the shooter's plans, folks who may have encouraged him? Any update on any of that?
So in terms of what we do for an interrogation perspective, we go and reach out to the family and community immediately. And we've conducted those investigations and interrogations with local law enforcement. And we're continuing to do that because those closest to the suspect are going to hopefully know the most about the suspect and his beliefs and his ideology. On top of that, unfortunately, it has been leaked that there was a Discord chat. And for those unfamiliar with it, it's a gaming chat room online that the suspect participated in. So what we're doing, we've already done, is serve legal process, not just on Discord, so that the information we gathered is sustained and held in a evidentiary posture that we could use in prosecution should it be decided to do so. And we're also going to be investigating anyone and everyone involved in that Discord chat.
Okay, very good. I see the public reports that the Discord thread had as many as 20 additional users. It sounds like you're trying to run down all of that to see if that's accurate, who else may have been on that thread, what they may have known. Is that fair to say?
It's a lot more than that, and we're running them all down.
It's a lot more than 20?
Yes, sir.
And you're running all of that to ground?
Every single one.
Yeah, fantastic.
I don't believe for a second that this happened just on a whim. I believe that this kid was radicalized by the left. I believe words have meaning. I believe the words that they used were used on purpose, hoping to inspire someone to take out Trump or anybody else that speaks the truth. And make sure everybody sees it and everyone hears it, because I believe they wanted these killings to happen. Ben Ferguson filling in for the great one. We'll be right back.
When was the last time you bragged about your wireless company? Like, did you know my wireless company gave away 1,000 American flags to deserving vets and forgave $10 million in veteran debt? Did you know my wireless company raised almost $500,000 to help prevent veteran suicide? In other words, when your wireless company is Pure Talk, there's a whole lot to brag about. You can even brag about the coverage you get with Pure Talk, a 5G network that is insanely fast, dependable, and secure. And you can definitely brag about how much money you save with Pure Talk. Unlimited talk, text, plenty of data. Just $25 a month, saving the average family over $1,000 a year. It's time to switch to my favorite wireless company, Pure Talk. Go to puretalk.com/Levin and save an additional 50% off your first month. Again, puretalk.com/LEVIN. Make the switch today. Pure Talk, wireless worth bragging about.
America's most powerful conservative voice. The Mark Levin Show. Dial in now. 877-381-3811.
Welcome back. It is the Mark Levin Show. Ben Ferguson filling in for the great one, and we've got a lot to chat about tonight. I do want to get some of your phone calls in here. and get some of your reaction. I've had a lot to talk about tonight, so let's get to some of your reaction. 1-877-381-3811. If you cannot get through, you can send me your comments. I read them all during the break on X, Ben Ferguson Show. They're on Instagram. It's a little different. At Ben Ferguson Podcast on Facebook as well. You can just put in Ben Ferguson. It'll pop up, and I will read them during the break. I read all of them. All right, let me get to some of your phone calls now. Mr. Producer, where do you want me to go first? Let's go to George, Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Nice to have you with us on the Mark Levin Show. Hi.
Yes, Ben Ferguson. I'm glad. Thank you for taking my call. I am a Korean War veteran and Vietnam War veteran, and I made a vow to my Savior Jesus Christ on April the 7th while I was at Fort Bragg under some real treacherous circumstances. And on September 30th, 1987, to make a long story short, because I know your time is valuable, President Reagan invited this preacher to the White House during the Bork nomination, and God allowed me to keep my vow that I made on April the 7th, 3 days after the death of Martin Luther King assassination. And when I told President Reagan that we need revival in the United States of America, pandemonium broke out in the White House, and people were hugging and screaming and clapping up in there. President Reagan said, "May I respond?" And the first thing he said during our 10-minute dialogue was, "I go into the Lincoln bedroom and I pray." I am angry tonight because the American people and those in the liberal camp, the swamp, has hidden the comments of President Ronald Reagan and Pastor George Lucas at September 30th, 1987 at the White House. Because in fact, Cass Patel today got in a big row with Senator Cory Booker, but I wish Senator Cass Patel would have reminded Cory Booker that when he was the mayor of Newark, New Jersey, he held a midnight marriage ceremony waiting until Lawrence versus the state of Texas was approved, and he married two men in Newark, New Jersey, Cory Booker. And also the news media will not tell you that on October 7th last year, they had to run and hide Cory Booker because he was over there fooling with them homosexuals.
All right, let me jump in here. A couple of things. I wanted you to be able to, one, thank you for your service to the country. Two, I don't care about any of that. What I do care about is that there is a true revival in this country, and I also think you can tell there's a big difference between the hearts of conservatives compared to the rot of the left. And this is the warning I would have to kids going to college right now or to high schools right now. We don't burn down our cities. We have prayer vigils after one of our own is taken from us. Charlie was a friend of mine. I've known Charlie since he was 18 years old. Watching someone you know be gunned down, assassinated, and really worrying about who's next, and constantly thinking about and texting with your friends in this industry, hey, like, watch your back. Hey, be careful out there. Hey, watch your back. Hey, be careful out there. Hey, what are you doing on safety? What are you doing on security? What are you doing on X, Y, and Z? These are the conversations that we are now having at a level we've never had them before. And yet I still sit here and I tell people, go to church. If we're going to overcome this, go to church. If we're going to overcome this, we have to pray for our enemy. It doesn't mean that we don't fight them at the same time. I want to be clear about that. I think Ronald Reagan was right when he talked about praying. We need more prayer. I think the President of the United States of America, Donald Trump, is very different than he was in 2016 when he ran. I want to be clear about that as well. I think what he is now is a very different person spiritually than he was in 2016. And that's a blessing for this country. I want to be very clear about that. 1-800 or 1-877-381-3811. Let me go back to your phone calls. Let me go to Nancy on line 5 in Philadelphia. Welcome. You are on the Mark Levin Show. Ben Ferguson with you. Hi.
Good evening. Ben, I have spoken with you and Mark Levin before on the air.
It's great to talk to you again.
I am a Philadelphia lawyer. Thank you. I'm a Philadelphia lawyer. I'm a person of great faith. I'm a person who over 50 years ago watched my 27-year-old mother die when she was killed by a drunk driver. I was 1.5 and my sister was 3.5. As such, I actually may have a unique perspective on Charlie's death and his murder, and on what to say to a 3-year-old child and a 1-year-old child of his. Okay? So my perspective on Charlie's death is this. And of course, it's a terrible tragedy. And of course, the killer, the gay killer most likely, is insane and criminally insane. However, the way I view it is this. I'm not upset. I'm not angry. To me, his death proves that God is real. I believe that God chose Charlie to effectuate his will, to bring more people to God, and to save the country that was founded on his principles, and to do it quickly, fully, before it's too late. Number two, what I would say to the widow of Charlie Kirk, and I would love to have a conversation with her, but what I would say at this moment is this. She can say, God loves us. I'm sure that's been taught already in their home. God loves the children, and God asked Charlie, please come help me. I need you here in heaven to come help me. And Charlie might say, but if I come to heaven, what about my family? And God would say, I need you desperately, and you and I will keep an eye over your children until the day that they and their mother all join together in heaven. This will be incredibly comforting to the children. So people will say all kinds of stupid and silly, meaningless things that will cause the children to be confused, angry, upset, and to dislike
Well,
God.
you know, I will tell you, Nancy, one of the things that I think is one of the blessings of, and I appreciate your phone call, of Charlie's life is that so much of it in the last 5, 6, 7 years has been caught on tape. And his kids are going to be able to watch those tapes for the rest of their lives. And I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful that so many of the things that he believed in are caught on tape. So much of his life was put on tape because they're going to be able to see their father do what he did well. They're going to be able to know their father more than many kids who lose their fathers at a young age, who don't have these videos. They have memories and stories that others tell them, but they're going to be able to watch their dad. And they're going to be able to listen to their dad in a long form. They're going to be able to understand their father and why he believed what they believed and the foundation for their family. And that is a blessing. But I also go back to what I said earlier. The question that I'm sure they're going to ask one day, and the question that so many are asking right now, is how did we get to this point? And I think it's very clear how we got to this point. Look at Illinois' governor, for example, J.D. Pritzker. J.D. Pritzker is a liar. J.D. Pritzker is a scumbag billionaire liar. J.D. Pritzker came out and said, I never called them Nazis. Okay, is that true or false? Right? He went on TV and said he never said that in the Sunday shows. All right, well then here, listen to J.B. Pritzker in his own words.
That is completely false. I have never called Republicans Nazis.
Everything that he has done has been tearing down constitutional democracy. And that's what happened in Nazi Germany. It doesn't take very long to tear apart a constitutional republic. Indeed, the Nazis did it in 53 days. And our democracy is almost as fragile. And we're seeing it right now. The dangers that we saw in Nazi Germany, especially in the earliest days of Nazi Germany, are the dangers that we need to react to now. If we don't, things will get much, much worse. And so we've got to raise alarm bells to everybody. It's a 5-alarm fire, everyone.
It's a 5-alarm fire? By the way, you want to know what J.D. Pritzker put out there in tweets? Support Trump, ? We could be like a good citizen who voted for a Hitler to get things back on track. A tameable Hitler to get things back on track. Those were his own words. J.D. Pritzker, another tweet, August 15th, 17. This unhinged disgrace to the presidency just openly sympathized with Nazis on national television. August 15th, 2017. That's his own words. J.D. Pritzker, when neo-Nazis marched on Charlottesville chanting Jews will not replace us, Donald Trump called them very fine people. By the way, that's a lie. And now he says it's all a lie. It's not a lie. Donald Trump is just a liar. Debates 2024. That's J.D. Pritzker's own tweet that he put out there. The way Donald Trump praises and romanticizes Hitler is unhinged, disturbing, and disqualifying. He is a dictator in waiting. We know exactly what he'll do if he's in power again. It cannot happen. Again, J.D. Pritzker's own words. The way Donald Trump praises and romanticizes Hitler is unhinged. Here's another tweet from J.D. Pritzker. In his first term, Trump said Hitler did some good things. In January, Elon proudly gave a Nazi salute. Yesterday, Representative self-quoted Joseph Goebbels, chief Nazi propaganda minister, on the House floor. They know what they're doing. J.D. Pritzker says he's never called them Nazis? And the media is letting him get away with this, by the way. Like, they're not, I want to be clear, they are not calling him out for the lie that he told this week.
That is completely false. I have never called Republicans Nazis.
I've never called Republicans Nazis? Well, then who was in charge of your Twitter account for the last decade while you were calling Republicans Nazis? You want to answer me that real quick? Because I'd love to know. 1-877-381-3811. Ben Ferguson filling in for the great one. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
When was the last time you bragged about your wireless company? Like, did you know my wireless company gave away 1,000 American flags to deserving vets and forgave $10 million in veteran debt? Did you know my wireless company raised almost $500,000 to help prevent veteran suicide? In other words, when your wireless company is Pure Talk, there's a whole lot to brag about. You can even brag about the coverage you get with Pure Talk, a 5G network that is insanely fast, dependable, and secure. And you can definitely brag about how much money you save with Pure Talk. Unlimited talk, text, plenty of data. Just $25 a month, saving the average family over $1,000 a year. It's time to switch to my favorite wireless company, Pure Talk. Go to puretalk.com/Levin and save an additional 50% off your first month. Again, puretalk.com/LEVIN. Make the switch today. Pure Talk, wireless worth bragging about.
All right, welcome back. It is the Mark Levin Show. Ben Ferguson filling in for the great one who's in Israel. He'll be back with you in a few days. And we've got a lot to chat about tonight. There's a lot about this whataboutism that's been happening, by the way. So if you just go back to the whataboutism and just look at this. ABC News is gushing over the text sent between Charlie Kirk's killer and his trans lover. That's happening like today. And they double down on it. MSNBC, by the way, they've also come out and said if you think that there is the internet's been cheering for the murder of Charlie Kirk and there's people out there cheering, you're just wrong, right? They're just going to tell you you're wrong. How do we know this? Well, let's listen to MSNBC's. And this chick's name is it, Miss Producer, I think I got this right. It's Zad Ronzine. I don't know, whatever the hell her name is. It's MSNBC. Who's watching? Listen.
I think if you look across media generally, you have seen a lot of people trying to grapple with Charlie Kirk's legacy and what that is as a right-wing agitator and as a provocateur and as, a strategist and the most important GOP figure besides Donald Trump, arguably ever. And so, or right now. And so there's a lot of grappling to do, but to suggest that the internet is cheering for this is just the opposite. Total opposite of what's actually happening.
I mean, they must really just think that we're this stupid. Quote, to suggest people on the internet are cheering for the murder of Charlie Kirk is the total opposite of what's actually happening. Their lying simply knows no bounds. They will lie to you on all of this. These are the same people that they go on TV and they're like, let me tell you about the lover. Oh, isn't it beautiful? Their text messages are just so beautiful. Like these text messages between the killer and the trans boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever the hell it is. It's just so beautiful and romantic.
We have seen an alleged murder with such specific text messages about the alleged murder weapon, where it was hidden, how it was placed, what was on it, but also it was very touching in a way that I think many of us didn't expect. A very intimate portrait into this relationship between the suspect's roommate and the suspect himself, with him repeatedly calling his roommate who is transitioning calling him my love, and I want to protect you, my love. So it was this duality of someone who the attorney said not only jeopardized the life of Charlie Kirk and the crowd, but was doing it in front of children, which is one of the aggravating circumstances of this case. And on the other hand, he was, speaking so lovingly about his partner. So a very interesting and, as Pierre said, riveting press conference, David.
Riveting press conference. That's ABC News. So MSNBC says no one's cheering for Charlie Kirk's murder. No one did online. That's just a lie. It never happened. It wasn't true. ABC News, like, we got a loving, just kind, sweet moment here. And then let's move over to CNN real quick. Dems are trying the both sides to the Charlie Kirk assassination by pointing out that Governor Shapiro's house was burned down. There's a problem with that narrative, by the way. The governor's house that was caught on fire was done by a Free Palestine radical extremist leftist that did it. Take a listen to this from CNN.
He's got a point.
Well, I think his point would be strengthened if he were honest today about who burned his house down. It was a Free Palestine leftist who came and burned down the governor's mansion. He left that out. He left that out of his tweet today, and he's talking about cherry-picking political violence, and we're talking about where there might be political violence. The violence against the governor of Pennsylvania and his family came from the left. And so I think there's a rush by Democrats who want to be president in 2028 to try to turn somehow Donald Trump's friend gets shot, and now everybody wants to blame Donald Trump for it. I guess that's what you have to do to get elected president. As a Democrat.
We are not doing that sitting here, okay? And Kate,
I'm
please
sorry.
Go ahead.
Is that not what's happening?
People are pointing. The governor's point is it doesn't matter where the violence came from.
I think it might.
Should be condemned.
Shouldn't it matter the motivations of the people?
It should be condemned regardless. Is the entire point of his speech.
Don't you care about the motivations?
To sit here and suggest that somehow him not mentioning it was some sort of sleight of hand.
Of course it is.
To try to make it seem like it was.
I don't think his political party would accept it.
You missed the entire point of what he was saying, and it's a message that's badly, badly needed in this country at this moment.
Look, I think that if we cannot be honest, if I were him and somebody tried to burn my house down, I think I'd be honest about who did it and why they did it. And it would matter for people to know that, would it not?
Scott, is this not a let's rise above because anyone that is committing an act of political violence who is trying to kill someone else for what they believe in, it's like it is inherently wrong and awful.
Isn't it amazing how far they'll go to try to just change this narrative? Like, oh no, we're not celebrating it. We didn't cause it. Did they or did they not? Did they or did they not? Call us Marxists, socialists, Hitler, Nazis. Did they or did they not? Say we're dictators. We'll be right back.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hour 3, Mark Levin Show. Ben Ferguson filling in for the great one. He will be back with you very soon as he is now in Israel. And we have covered a lot tonight, and one thing that we have done has gone viral because of you guys, the warriors out there that are wanting to make sure that when we give you stuff like what I'm about to play for you again, if you missed it earlier, that we have it for you now. There is a question that has been asked, and that is, how did we get to where we are today? Where we have young people in America who believe at a rate of 42% that political violence in a new poll is acceptable behavior. How did this youngest generation get to the point where they believe that assassinating people that you disagree with politically, you disagree with the words that they are saying, is justifiable? I'm going to give you evidence of exactly how we got to where we are right now. And I believe that this is a clear and coordinated effort by the left at the highest levels of the Democratic Party to radicalize a generation the same way that terrorist organizations use young people to do their dirty work for them, the same way that cartels use young people to do their dirty work for them, their drug smuggling, their human trafficking, their sex trafficking. They indoctrinate it in their young people. They use them as their mules. And so the Democratic Party started in on our young people at our college campuses, at our high schools, at our elementary schools years ago. And now we have gotten to a point where 42% of America's youngest generation believes that political violence, assassinations, burning of buildings is acceptable, warranted, needed, part of society. We also have the media who has gotten in on this indoctrination by giving the microphone to the leaders of the Democratic Party. And I'm not talking about fringe leaders. I'm talking about the top leadership. I'm talking about the former president of the United States of America, Joe Biden, the former vice president of the United States of America, Kamala Harris, the White House press secretaries, senators, congressmen, and other members of the media that have said, yes, we will indoctrinate people to believe that the conservative movement is so dangerous that you are justified in wanting to kill them. But how do you get to that point? The simple answer is you name call, you desensitize, you dehumanize. Governor Pritzker, for example, was asked a simple question. He said he's never, ever called Republicans Nazis or Hitler. By the way, the media knows this is a lie. They should have said, well, then if you're going to say this now, Governor of Illinois, then we want to quote for you, play for you your own words that got people to the point where they thought it was okay to take out conservatives like Donald Trump and Charlie Kirk and whoever the hell else they want to do this to, because you've turned them into the worst people in the history of our world. Simple response from Governor Pritzker. What did it sound like? And then listen to his own words over his own history.
That is completely false. I have never called Republicans Nazis.
Everything that he has done has been tearing down constitutional democracy. And that's what happened in Nazi Germany. It doesn't take very long to tear apart a constitutional republic. Indeed, the Nazis did it in 53 days. And our democracy is almost as fragile. And we're seeing it right now. The dangers that we saw in Nazi Germany, especially in the earliest days of Nazi Germany, are the dangers that we need to react to now. If we don't, things will get much, much worse. And so we've got to raise alarm bells to everybody. It's a 5-alarm fire, everyone.
Governor Pritzker there in his own words. What did he say in tweets? Tweets that are still up right now. In his own words. Support Trump, ? We could be like the good citizens who voted for a tameable Hitler to get things back on track, was one of his tweets he put out. That's not enough, Governor Pritzker. Quote, this unhinged disgrace of the presidency just openly sympathized with Nazis on national television. Another tweet from him. When neo-Nazis marched on Charlottesville chanting Jews will not replace us, Donald Trump called them very fine people. That is a lie, by the way. And now, back to his tweet, he says, it's a lie. It's not a lie. Donald Trump is just a liar. J.D. Pritzker, a billionaire Democrat. The way Donald Trump praises and romanticizes Hitler is unhinged, he put in another tweet. Disturbing and disqualifying. He is a dictator in waiting. We know exactly what he'll do if he's in power again, referring to his reelection. It cannot happen, he says. Now, why would Pritzker put this out there? How about this one? In his first term, Trump said Hitler did some good things. In January, Elon proudly gave a Nazi salute. Also a lie. Yesterday, Rep. Self-quoted Joseph Goebbels, chief Nazi propaganda minister, on the House floor. They know what they're doing. J.D. Pritzker knew what he was doing, by the way. He knew that he was lying. He knew that he was trying to undermine every conservative out there by saying you are justifiable, youngest generation, and wanting to take them out, wanting to assassinate them, wanting to burn down our cities, wanting to kill them. But Pritzker's not the only one. We've got the top leadership of the Democratic Party saying this for years. I hope you will take what I'm about to play for you and spread it everywhere.
That while Donald Trump was president, he said he wanted generals like Adolf Hitler had.
Just to be clear, when you said we do agree, President Biden believes that Donald Trump is a fascist.
I mean, yes, we've said, he said himself. The former president has said he is going to be a dictator on day one. We cannot ignore that. We cannot.
Do you think Donald Trump is a fascist?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
President Franklin Roosevelt was appalled that neo-Nazis, fascists in America were lining up to essentially pledge their support for the kind of government that they were seeing in Germany.
Listen, I am concerned that this race is tight in general for whatever reason, even if Americans didn't understand that he is a threat to our democracy and that he is a fascist.
His default, of course, is a fascist-like tendency during the time that he can, have a cognitive ability. And that's not an accusation that I'm making. That's an accusation that comes from people who have worked for him at the most senior levels.
You've never had in the history of the country a president want to be like Adolf Hitler. I mean, that's just such an extraordinary statement that have come from now a number of people that it should cause everybody in America to stop and think about how devastatingly impossible that is to contemplate.
It's a joyful campaign, but it is reflecting off who they are running against. A dark, dismal, fascist, and increasingly obviously fascist person.
We are on the eve of an authoritarian administration. This is what 21st century fascism is starting to look like.
So as important as it is that we are doing the work of resistance against Donald Trump and this hostile administration and this hostile government takeover and this march towards extremism.
Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans represent an extremism that threatens the very foundations of our republic.
Are they a threat to democracy? Yes. Are they going to take our rights away? Yes. Are they going to put people's lives in danger? Yes. Are they going to endanger the planet by not dealing with climate change? Yes. They're going to do all that.
There needs to be unrest in the streets for as long as there's unrest in our lives. And unfortunately, there's plenty to go around.
I just don't even know why there aren't uprisings all over the country. Maybe there will be.
It's a danger. It's a genuine danger to American security.
What
is what kicking the out of fascism looks like?
Comparing the tactics of Donald Trump to Mussolini and Hitler is a very legitimate thing.
We have a Timo Hitler in the White House right now. I have thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House.
They're still going to have to go out and put a bullet in Donald Trump, and that's a fact.
The thing we were all warning about for the last few years is not coming, it is here. We do now live in a country that has an authoritarian leader in charge. We have a consolidating dictatorship in our country.
And what we're seeing play out here is Donald Trump's promise to be a dictator on day one.
Trump has seemingly never met a dictator he doesn't like.
It's some real dictator type stuff.
The American people will have to decide that they are the last in the line of defense against Donald Trump and American fascists.
What is happening right now with this presidential attack on judges?
We live in a fascist dictatorship. This is where we are.
You have to call a thing what it is and be definitional about it. The word MAGA doesn't mean anything other than if you go back, it's what fascists used to say.
I've been tweeting for over a year. Daily reminder, today's GOP is no longer a political movement. It is a fascist movement that has embraced white nationalism,
here's the guy who said, stand back and stand by to the Proud Boys. Look at what he's doing last night, as you note, that, more or less salutes that are either QAnon or almost look like Nazism.
That is how we got to where we are today. That is how we got to the point where a deranged individual decided it was his duty to take out Charlie Kirk. That is how America got to the point where we had to witness the assassination attempt and the shooting of a president, Donald J. Trump. This doesn't happen overnight. It happens when you chip away at what makes this country so great. When you chip away at people and you instill hate in the hearts of young people, you notice that the violence is coming from the youngest in America, the youngest adults in America. The rioting and the looting and the breakdown of society, the stealing in our stores and our cities, the demise of our cities in this country. Who are the ones that are the bad actors? It is the youngest generation who now is saying publicly, 4 out of 10 of them are saying it is justifiable to kill your political enemy. Never forget what the media and the left have done to this nation. 1-877-381-3811. By the way, that montage, I put it up on social media. You can share it on social media wherever you are on social media. You can follow me on X, Ben Ferguson Show. It's also up on Instagram at Ben Ferguson Podcast. And if you're on Facebook, Ben Ferguson there. We'll take a quick break. We'll get your reaction. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Welcome back. It is the Mark Levin Show. Ben Ferguson filling in for the great one. We've got some breaking news. The Utah County Attorney now revealing this about Tyler Robinson's DNA.
The rifle, ammunition rounds, and towel were sent for forensic processing. DNA consistent with defendant was found on the trigger, other parts of the rifle, the fired cartridge casing, 2 of the 3 unfired cartridges, and the towel. Law enforcement was unable to immediately locate the shooter, so they published photos of the shooter from the UVU surveillance cameras and asked for the public's help to identify him.
He's giving the timeline, the story. The Utah County District Attorney also revealed that Charlie Kirk killer's mother confirmed Tyler became, quote, more left and more gay and trans rights oriented over the past year. That is how fast he was radicalized, apparently. This, again, coming from the Utah Attorney General at a press conference earlier. I also want to go back to something else that I said earlier. And that is about the media trying to whitewash this. ABC's Matt Gutman says he's not sure if we have seen an alleged murder with such specific texts that were, quote, very touching. I played that for you earlier. It has now gone viral, by the way, as it should. But the fact that this is a journalist and he is still employed tells you how much journalism is, number one, dead, and how much the media is now just full propaganda. This is all propaganda. Through and through, it is propaganda. That's it. That's the whole thing here. Paul Moreau on Kirk's killer today on Fox News Channel. Listen to this.
He confessed to this crime. Yeah, our panel is here: Paul Morrow, Josh Ritter, Donna Rotano, and Andy McCarthy and Nicole Parker. Paul, I want to get to you first. You're sitting here on set with me in New York. Your reaction to the charges, I heard you say that's new. As we are working our way through aggravated murder, felony discharge of a firearm, obstruction of justice, disposing of the clothing, charge 4, charge 5. Witness tampering, when the accused assassin asked his roommate to delete the account, and also the witness tampering where he asked for him to remain silent.
Right, so that's new. We'd actually heard a lot of that that was in that press conference when I was out in Utah. That's the equivalent of a speaking indictment, where the prosecutor puts a lot of information into the indictment. In this case, it's an information. He didn't want to go outside the four corners of that information, but he laid out a lot of his case. He got a lot of it out there, created that narrative, created the picture of what's going on. The reason I reacted to the witness tampering and the destruction of evidence thing is because he's being charged with that, but that was the main perpetrator, the alleged perpetrator, directing his roommate to do it. Now, the question becomes, did the roommate do it? The roommate apparently did not provide the original note. If you caught it, they said the cops have a photograph of the original note, right? So maybe that person, the trans roommate, destroyed the original note. My point is this: they might have some leverage over the roommate, but they don't want to charge the roommate because the roommate right now is a really valuable investigatory vector.
Very valuable investigatory factor. Ben Ferguson filling in for the great one, Mark Levin. We'll be right back.
The voice of reason in a sea of lunacy. Mark Levin. Dial in now. 877-381-3811.
Welcome back. It is the Mark Levin Show. Ben Ferguson filling in for the great one who's in Israel. He'll be back with you in a few days. I can promise you that. MSNBC talking about the overwhelming evidence against the assassin of Charlie Kirk. Even MSNBC's saying it this way after the murder suspect's first court appearance.
An admission on their own.
Does it seem to you like an open and shut case then?
Yes, and I shy away from saying that. I'm careful to say, but realistically, the evidence is overwhelming. We can talk about all the cultural issues involved with this shooting. Those aside, in terms of a straight up murder prosecution, this is much more evidence than prosecutors normally have in an ordinary street crime case or a crime of passion where there aren't hundreds of cameras watching what happened and hundreds of other pieces of evidence tying the defendant to this crime. So this is going to be a tough one for the defense, no matter what. I wouldn't be surprised if you see an early plea.
Well, that could happen, but will the defense seize on some of those statements made very publicly by Kash Patel?
No, because they won't go.
You listen to that, and they're even saying it's overwhelming. But you still have a left that's celebrating it, right? Like they're celebrating this. You also have a left that's losing their minds because there are actually people that are losing their jobs after posting videos and saying things in classrooms celebrating Charlie Kirk's death. MSNBC saying it's not happening, right? I played it earlier. To suggest people on the internet are cheering for the murder of Charlie Kirk is the total opposite of what actually is happening. No, there are people that are actually online crying now because they've lost their jobs. And people have asked me, well, Ben, aren't you in favor of free speech? I am. I'm also in favor of accountability for people that say extreme things. I'm in favor of that. I'm in favor of people that are held accountable for their words. By the way, I could lose my job every day when I do what I do for a living. If I say the wrong thing, by the way, I have the right to say anything I want to at least once on the radio. Doesn't mean that I can say extreme things and expect to keep my job. Right? Like, goes back to the basics. Like, you can't scream fire in a crowded theater. Like, it's pretty simple. And yet we have the left now who is angry that they're being held accountable for their cheering of the assassination of Charlie Kirk. One of the greatest stories to come out of this is the accountability that we're done playing games on the right. We're going to use your words and show your words to the world. We're not going to sit back here and act like when you're cheering on the assassination of someone that this is okay. And by the way, if you're proud of those words, great. We're amplifying them. I also love how the left is just, it's truly amazing. They are freaking out that they can't control this narrative. They are freaking out that we have a president and an administration that is going after the people that either aided or abetted in this, and we're investigating it that way. They can't handle that there is going to be true accountability. I am totally in favor of free speech. I'll say that over and over and over again. I'm in favor, by the way, of you being able to burn the American flag. You want to know why? Because I want to make sure that if this country ever goes rogue, I have the ability to do that if I need to. Or my kids or my grandkids. By the way, if I see you burning American flag now, I may beat your ASS. But you want to know how I know we live in the greatest country in the world is the fact that you can protest your government when they get out of line. That you're not going to put me in jail for protesting my government when they get out of line. Because I know what this government can do. I witnessed it in the last administration. We were teetering as a country, as a free country. There are countless people online that are laughing that Charlie Kirk was shot, thinking it's hilarious that Charlie Kirk was assassinated. A liberal journalist, by the way, said Charlie Kirk's assassin isn't as sexy as the Luigi guy that killed the CEO of the healthcare company. You know what she said? She literally said, he'll be less inspirational. This is where the left's mind is. This is what they believe. There was a liberal on Piers Morgan's show named Destiny, who refused to condemn Charlie Kirk's assassination. This is how much hate is in their heart. We are in we are in a war with a left that wants us all dead. Those that do what I do, they want us dead, and they will celebrate it. Scott Jennings on CNN said earlier, Dems justifying Charlie Kirk's murder are also saying that murdering half of America with his views is justifiable. He is not wrong. Last night, on a show that I do when I fight the commies at CNN, Joe Borelli had this to say about the radical left in this country now. Listen carefully.
The headline of today is the Vice President, Joe, going on a podcast that he recorded from the White House and using that moment after a tragedy like this to say that this is about punishing them being the left, them being his political opponents. That actually, I think, is surprising to a lot of Americans because that's not typically what you would expect to hear from the White House after.
Well, let's talk about some polling that he used to justify those comments before he made them on TV. YouGov came out with a poll 3 days ago talking about how each side feels about violence and support of political deaths. Liberals, 16% believe it's okay to feel joy when your political opponent is killed. Liberals, very liberals, 24%. Conservatives, 4%. Very conservatives, 3%. Justifying violence. Very liberal people have 25% answered yes, it's okay. You justified that you should do violence against your political opponents. Liberals, 17%. Conservatives, 8%. Very conservatives, 3%. That means it is 6 to 1 times more likely in respondents to this poll on the left. Now, I'm not saying there's exclusivity on the left. I'm not saying that. But there is certainly a problem where 6 times the amount of Republicans believe that it's okay to feel joy when your political opponent is killed, murdered, whatever, attacked, and that 6 to 1 believe that they are okay in justifying violence against political opponents. That's a problem. That's a cancer within the movement.
That is a problem, but
I love how the last thing you heard there, that is a problem, but. That is a problem, but. It's a problem, but. What's the but there? That's what I want to know. Tell me how that is a problem, but, right? Because this is what the left believes. Manchin on MSNBC this morning. He says Trump needs to lead on both sides of calming the waters. Calming the waters. We're not killing people. We're having prayer vigils.
The vast majority of your former colleagues in the Congress have condemned this without condition. This is terrible. We cannot have this kind of political violence in our country. Others have sought to assign blame before we even knew anything about the shooter. What would be your message, not just to the public, but to this administration about calming the waters in this country?
It starts at the top. I don't need to tell any of you all. It starts at the top. I was governor in my state of West Virginia. We had mine disasters. We lost. Our families were devastated, and they needed a commander in chief in grief and mourning, helping them through this. They didn't need me out there blaming somebody else. I knew where the problems were. We were going to get to that. I had to get them through a really difficult time to hold the families together. So right now, I would pray that President Trump, and I truly believe all of us have a better angel in us. There's something that says that's just not right. You can't do that. You can't say that. I'm praying that he'll lead the charge on both sides, Democrat and Republicans, saying, guys, this better angel here, we have got to tap this down. We're a better country than this. We're the United States, not the divided states, and we're going in the wrong direction. And then basically look at the root problem. He identified it yesterday. We're radicalizing people sitting in front of the TV screen. I got little grandkids. I come in and we're talking to them like, I just grab it from them. I said, no, this is off. I turn it off. We're going to talk.
We're holding prayer vigils, Senator Manchin. Like, you're on MSNBC and you're sitting there like this is some sort of both sides BS. And this whataboutism, well, he needs to calm the waters. We're not killing people. We're holding prayer vigils and eulogies to remember one of our dear friends who was assassinated, and all of us saw it. You want to talk about protecting kids? You know how many kids saw this video? The majority of people that I know whose children had phones, which is getting younger and younger, have seen this video. Hell, we had liberal teachers that were showing this video to their school children in class. That's what the radical left has done. There's more than 100 teachers, by the way, that are now being investigated in Texas for celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk. And that number is growing, by the way. If you don't think the majority of kids that have access to the internet and their phones saw a live, a real assassination, you're living under a rock. And if you want to protect kids, as he just sanctimoniously said, then maybe tell the left to stop killing people. There's an idea. Tell them to stop murdering people because they wanted to bring people together, as Charlie Kirk did, who had different ideas, ideals, beliefs, and have a grand debate about it. Charlie Kirk was guilty of doing one thing: having a grand debate and making people think. And the left says, no, that's too dangerous for us. By the way, this is the same left that said that Donald Trump was too dangerous for us, so we need to put him in jail. We need to raid his home. We need to lock him up. The same exact radical, extreme left that wanted to lock up their political opponents are the same ones that radicalized these young people on the left to say that it's justifiable to kill your political opponent. 1-877-381-3811. 1-877-381-3811. By the way, all of the audio I'm playing for you will be in our podcast tomorrow. And download my podcast as well. I'd love to keep up with you every day, the Ben Ferguson podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. More coming up.
Mark Levin.
Welcome back. It is the Mark Levin Show. Ben Ferguson with you, and it is so nice to have you with us on the show tonight. Mark is in Israel. He will be back with you. I can promise you very soon on that trip coming back from Israel. We've got a lot to talk about. I do want to get some of your phone calls tonight. The number, 1-877-381-3811. Let me go to Fred in Memphis, my hometown, where the National Guard's being sent in by Donald Trump. I love that. Fred, nice to have you with us.
Hey, Ben, I'm glad you're in tonight for the great one because you'll understand what I'm talking about. I have a 20-year-old son that's a junior at the University of Memphis. He's also the president of Turning Point USA at the University of Memphis. We've had a lot. I've heard a lot that's gone on. I know you. Do you remember the Kyle Rittenhouse?
Yeah.
Escapade that went on there
at the University of Memphis. Yes, I remember it well.
Yeah, the liberal administration at the University of Memphis and our liberal officials did not do very good security, and that turned into an absolute riot in the parking garage at the University of Memphis. Cars being slammed and hit by people protesting Kyle being there. It scares me for my son. He wants to be involved in this. He's standing up to it. I'm proud of him for that. But it's scary as a parent to have your kid out there involved in this kind of stuff, trying to fight for our freedoms while they are being attacked. And they historically, the liberals have just let them do what they want to do. That's got to stop.
Yeah, I don't think it's unfortunately going to stop because the left is totally controlling our universities. You know, what Texas is doing right now, by the way, and just using the words of their own teachers and exposing them, and the students are doing a great job of those that are cheerleading and those online. They're helping police those online. They are doing an amazing job of saying, okay, this is what you've said. We're going to let the world see it, okay? And we're going to let the world see it. And while, by the way, they're seeing it, we'll decide what we're going to do with you. But if you're celebrating the assassination of someone, you're not going to be teaching our kids. Like, we need this to be happening all over the country. We're seeing a database that's been put together by conservatives right now that are working towards this, and I absolutely love it. It really is amazing that they're putting a database together of these people so you can make sure that, like, they don't pop up at another school. And those that are celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk and the assassination of Charlie Kirk, like, you know who they are and their employers know who they are. I think I lost you there, but I appreciate your phone call. Thank you, sir. It's good to talk to you. 1-800 or 1-877-381-3811. Do I have time to get one more in here real quick, Mr. Producer? All right, tell me where to go because my call screener just shut down. Let's go to Clint. Welcome. You are on the Mark Levin Show. Ben Ferguson with you. Hi.
Hey, Ben. Thanks for taking the call. I just want to say amen pretty much to every sentence you uttered tonight. That's rare, but awesome job. Hey, listen, everything you said in light of that, and there's always the conservative people. We all hear it. We all know where all this stuff comes from. The rest of the world may not, and certainly the right does not. It is my view that somehow, I don't know the procedural process, but there needs to be some kind of independent study set aside that takes a look at where all this stuff is coming from, and we know where it is, but we need to be able to take and, say, interview 1,000 criminals out there or 1,000 of these deep left people and really get down and do the research and understand where did they hear this? Where did they see this? Because we know that what they say Donald Trump said that he didn't and et cetera. I mean, that's obvious, but unless we have an independent counsel, something that has teeth that can subpoena, something that will shock the world when the results come out, we really need to fix this somehow now that we're in power.
Yeah. Well, I think you're seeing this happen in real time. I'm out of time, by the way. Keep up with me on social media and grab the Ben Ferguson podcast. God bless you guys. See you soon.